Hey, sports history fans, this is Ariel Gonzalez from Wrestling with Heels On. Hey, when you go to a sporting event, you don't go there to be meek and mild, unless you live in Japan. You go there to get freaking wild. That means bringing some attitude to your amplitude. How do you do that? You get Racket. R-A-K-I-T. Racket combines a compact 7-inch megaphone, 8 powerful adjustable LED lights, noisemakers, an insert you design, and it's all fully customizable to match your team's colors. Now here's the coolest thing about this product. J.J. Abraham, the founder, was the ultimate cheer dad. He followed his daughter's cheer group around the country, and he saw parents struggling using all sorts of crazy contraptions to make some noise for their kids. And then he had an aha moment. He thought, wait, why not combine all of these doodads into an all-in-one compact device for the ultimate fan? JJ and his team worked 3 years on developing version after version after version until they finally landed on Racket, R-A-K-I-T, so you can make some noise and cheer and be a part of the action. So get out there and let's get loud. Bring a racket to your next game or competition to cheer on your favorite team or athlete. You can customize your racket with your own logos, drawings, and names. Get beads to match your team's colors. Flashing lights add to the excitement. Are you ready to make a racket? Be part of the game. Each racket pack comes with 1 racket megaphone, 1 lanyard to keep a hold of the thing, 2 scratch-resistant bead packs, 1 clear and 1 color of your choice, and a 10-pack of customizable self-adhesive inserts. Currently on sale, wait for it, $24.99. To pick up your racket today, head to myracket.com. That's myraket.com. Now get out there and make some noise.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Rose Bowl. The game that inspired the college football bowl season has a long and storied history. The stadium itself is 100 years old, and in celebration of it, Pigskin Dispatch is assembling some of the top historians and authors to share the memories, people, and events that make the granddaddy of them all the special game that it is. Enjoy this Rose Bowl memory from pigskindispatch.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And we are in Rose Bowl month. It's December, and we are celebrating Rose Bowl 100 years of the great stadium of the Rose Bowl and all the games, events, and people that are connected to the Rose Bowl. And sometimes it comes down to some personal traditions, and we have one of those tonight with our friend Dana Auguster of Historically Speaking Sports Podcast on Sports History Network. Dana, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for having me on once again.
Well, most definitely. No, Dana, you reached out to me, after we set up and did a couple podcasts, and if you haven't heard them yet, Dana has been on and has been talking about a couple of the UCLA's Rose Bowl events that they had in 1966 and 1976. So make sure you listen to those when Dana has been on and sharing those great historic events. But this one is a little bit more personal, and it's connected to the Rose Bowl with your family, and we're anxious to hear this because you're very excited about. You're very animated in your email talking to me about it, and before the show program here, before we hit record, some more great stuff too with your excitement. So I can't wait to hear this.
All right. Well, as a kid growing up, this is, now you got to remember, I'm 49 years old. So we're talking about when I was a kid, we're talking about late 70s, early 80s. So, and you could just bring yourself back to that point.
Way back in the day, right?
Back in the day, yes. We're talking about late 70s, early 80s. Okay. And it's just a little block in time, okay, that we're talking about here. My grandfather was the real sports fan in our family up to that point. You know, I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old, and I'm just starting to learn the sports and stuff like that. So my grandfather really was the real sports junkie. I mean, if he was alive today with all of the 24-hour sports, he would be just in heaven, you know, right now with all of the sports information that just bombard you from day to day. But he was the real sports fan. And my grandmother knew that it's New Year's Day. Football is going to be on all day. So she has to put her foot down with this. She said, she tells me and she tells my grandpa, I know you guys are going to watch football until your eyes bleed. I know this. But I ask one thing. And we both look at her and we're like, there will be no peace in this house unless I watch what she called the Rose Parade, which was, of course, the Tournament of Roses Parade, which was on January 1st that morning. So we were basically not held hostage. That might be too big of a word, but we basically had to relinquish the television to her so she could watch the Rose Parade. And I ended up sitting there watching it with her and stuff like that. My mom would be in the kitchen cooking and stuff like that, and she would kind of peek in and watch, right? And so when the Rose Parade was over, my grandmother said, okay, I watched my Rose Parade. Now y'all can have the TV. She gives my grandfather the remote for our little Zenith floor model television. First game on, CBS, the Cotton Bowl Classic. Me and my grandpa sitting there watching the Cotton Bowl Classic, and that was always the first game that we would watch on New Year's Day. It wasn't the Gator Bowl. My grandpa loved the Cotton Bowl. He said, we got to watch the Cotton Bowl. Okay. So we watched the Cotton Bowl, whoever it might be playing. I remember, with Joe Montana and the chicken soup game. I remember that was one of my first football memories, watching that game when they played the University of Houston. We would watch that game. And then when that game was over, we would immediately, without even thinking about it, go to NBC for the Rose Bowl with Kurt Gowdy and Aldero Gallis. And later on, it would be Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen. And we'll watch that game. And it's just something about the Rose Bowl, which was so different. I mean, you had the Cotton Bowl, they were playing on artificial turf. It was always either cold or rainy or both. It was always bad weather, it seemed like. I don't ever remember a Cotton Bowl where the sun was out. Don't ever remember one where it was like perfect conditions. And they were playing on that really hard, lime green looking artificial turf. Then you go over to the Rose Bowl and you watch the Rose Bowl. You see the Rose Bowl Stadium and you see the San Gabriel Mountains in the background. And the green and the grass would be so green. And the cheerleaders would be so pretty. And the sunlight would be so bright. And it just seemed like, okay, we got like rainy weather in Louisiana, or it may be cold, but in Pasadena, it just seemed like that was paradise. Where are they playing this game? But it looked like a postcard whenever they showed the overhead shot of the Rose Bowl Stadium. And at that point, that's when I fell in love with that game. It didn't matter who was playing. If UCLA was in it, that was like gravy if they were in the game. But my grandpa and I sit down there. We have our little TV trays and everything. We eat our New Year's Day dinner and watching the game. He and I. My dad would join us. My dad wasn't a big college football fan. My dad was a big NFL fan, namely the Raiders. But he would kind of watch with us, kind of like in self-defense. But that was like me and my grandpa's bonding moments when he and I would sit down there and watch the Rose Bowl together. And we watched the Rose Bowl. Then we had to make a decision. Where to next? Because either it'd be the Orange Bowl, which was on NBC still, with I think Don Quiggy and John Brody was calling the game, or we would go to ABC in the Sugar Bowl with Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles. Now, we always kind of lean toward the Sugar Bowl because it's the Southeastern Conference, and my grandpa was a big SEC football fan. You know, he liked Alabama, he liked Georgia, he liked LSU. You know, those were the usual suspects in the Sugar Bowl during that time. So we would always kind of gravitate toward the Sugar Bowl unless the Orange Bowl had national championship implications. So we were kind of like, we started channel flipping before it became fashionable. I think we invented it. We just watched the game for a little while there, then we'll go to the other game and watch that for a little while to go back and forth. And that's like our Rose Bowl tradition. My grandmother passed away when I was 12. But for some reason, every New Year's Day, even to this day, 2022, I found myself in front of the TV, January 1st morning, hangover and all in most cases, watching the Rose Parade to kind of keep that tradition alive that my grandmother started. Okay. And then doing the same thing. Now the Cotton Bowl, now the way that we all have all these different bowl games on January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd, January 6th, it kind of lost that, but still, I have to watch the Rose Bowl. I have to watch it because to keep that feeling of that bond that I had with my grandfather alive. Got to keep that going. And then at night, whoever might be playing. But the Rose Parade was the number one thing in our house in the morning. In January, and at 4 o'clock Eastern time, is the Rose Bowl from Pasadena in the shadow of the San Gabriel Mountains. That's my family tradition on January 1st.
Wow, that's incredible, Dana. That is some great stuff. And you know what? You connect on so many levels, and I know it connects with me because it stirs up own memories. I'm 55, a little bit older, but just the connections of going to your grandparents' house. Back in the 70s, maybe younger people don't appreciate it, but most households only had one color television, and that's you had to share it. And if mom or grandma or auntie had to watch a program, and before the games were on, like the Rose Bowl parade, which my grandmother did too, and took over the television for that. Well, that's what you did. And just like Thanksgiving, the Macy's parade before the NFL games.
Yeah, that too. That absolutely. The Macy's parade. Yeah, that was a must have, and that was a go to in my house on Thanksgiving morning. That was a go to.
Yeah. But you connected and you hit some buttons and stirred some memories up and some emotional things that take it back. And I'm sure a lot of listeners had the same thing. So we thank you for that, and thank you for sharing your story. And it's great to hear that, and a great connection you have with the Rose Bowl. But I too can remember, of course, up here in Pennsylvania in the winters, we would have a couple feet of snow on the ground, and so we didn't feel too bad for the people at the Cotton Bowl that they had some freezing rain and had to Joe Montana eating chicken soup. We're shoveling, trying to get our cars out of the driveway and stuff. But like you said, right. The Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl, and you're seeing the cheerleaders and all the paraphernalia going on, and the Rose Parade and everybody in short sleeve shirts and palm trees. That just was something special, and we can definitely appreciate that. So thanks.
And the Sugar Bowl was inside, so
right.
So the Sugar Bowl was inside in the Superdome. So and I mean, it was like watching the Sugar Bowl with my grandpa, and watching all of those bowl games, and watching the Gator Bowl on New Year's Eve. Right before Dick Clark's Rockin' Eve. That was also kind of a tradition with he and I watching the Gator Bowl right on New Year's Eve.
Well, that is some great stuff, Dana. Thank you for sharing that for us, and thanks for participating and help us celebrate this Rose Bowl month for the big 100th anniversary of the great stadium and the game that played there. So thanks a lot.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's on my bucket list to go to a Rose Bowl. Go to the Rose Bowl. Either watch UCLA play a regular season game or actually go to the Rose Bowl itself. That's on my bucket list. So that will take place soon. I guarantee you.
All right, man. That's Rose Bowl's on my bucket list too. So maybe we'll go to the same game someday.
All right. That's a date. Let's do it.
All right. You got it. All right. Dana Auguster, Historically Speaking Sports. Thank you very much for joining us here and celebrating the Rose Bowl.
Man, no problem, man. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me share.
Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast.
We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.